Hi, welcome to Snowdrops Sunsets. My name's Terry. I am doing a video today around the topic of trauma, mental health and spiritual awakening, and the link between the three of them. It's an ad hoc video. It's just been on my mind. I just want to talk about it because I try to restrict my social media personally, and I'm on certain groups, and within those groups there just seems to be a lot of discussion around this subject at the minute, and I think I've got some insights I'd like to share. So for me, they are very interconnected, the three issues of trauma and traumatic events in your life, mental health distress, and spiritual awakening. I'll just try and quickly explain why. First of all, for me, what I've come to realise is a traumatic event is it's a wake-up call. It's something you've manifested in your life for the purpose of waking you up. Hence the link with a spiritual awakening. When you start to become awake and aware of your experience and potentially how you've been allowing yourself to live unconsciously, that can cause mental health distress. Depending on the traumatic event, obviously that in and of itself can also cause mental health distress. So that's the link that I have been able to put together between them three, and I have a lot more information around the process and how to deal with trauma and things, but I just really wanted to kind of discuss this topic a little bit and unpack it slightly. I don't want to do a really long video about it, but yes. So trauma is, imagine if you're driving along in a car and the driver is gone into that zone where they're not paying attention and they are about to fall asleep at the wheel, but unfortunately they're about to drive you off the edge of a cliff. What do? Well, you try and get their attention. You might get their attention by going, "Driver, what's up?" And they don't respond. You might give them a little nudge. They don't respond. The driver continues not to respond. In order to stop the car going over the cliff, you do something pretty drastic to change the circumstance. So you might grab the wheel or pull up the handbrake, or I don't know, I'm just making a metaphor. And obviously that can be a big, jarring, shifting circumstance. Trauma. But the reason for the trauma is because of the unconsciousness, because we have been driving along in our lives without really paying attention to the consequences of our actions and without really seeing where we're going. And it's it's our soul's purpose to follow a certain path, and also to be a part of an earthly system. And if we're not doing that, if we're not playing our part, it's like vital to our existence that we do, because we can literally, as we're kind of potentially seeing play out with some behaviours in the world, we can literally drive the entire of humanity off a cliff. You know, if everyone's unconscious and they're not paying attention to what they're doing. We're in a system, we're in an earth system that has, fixed rules and laws, and everything else within nature abides by those. And humans have been blessed with this gift of consciousness of, obviously I know that animals and beings are conscious, that's a whole other thing, but we have the ability to change our circumstances and to be able to see things. We have more power and control over ourselves because of our brains and the way, we have evolved. We have that extra level of awareness where we can make conscious decisions for ourselves that affect and impact our environment. But obviously then that comes with a weight. It comes with a, it's like, with any responsibility, there's a weight to that, and if you're not aware of it, you can actually be very dangerous. Even if you think you're living a pretty benign life, if you're not really conscious of what you're doing and what you're supporting through your continual actions, because everything we do has an impact on everything else. And if you're not aware of that, if you're taking no responsibility for that and you're not being conscious of it, you will manifest likely a trauma experience. And the trauma experience, like I say, it's this jarring kind of circumstance. You'll be poked and prodded and stuff first. You might have small traumas of any really jarring circumstance that happens to you. Pay attention. If you carry on ignoring them, which is what happened to me, I carried on ignoring like these jarring, oh, that's not quite right, oh, that's really not good, that make me uncomfortable, because I just refused to really look at myself and my situation and my life, what I was accepting in my life, and I wasn't following what was right for me. I wasn't following my path, and I was about to drive myself over a cliff. And I kept ignoring all the pokes and prods, So eventually I had like really serious traumas that just literally had to take me out of my situation and put me somewhere else. And that was pretty extreme. Like, I generally don't think people should have to go through that. Like, it's, if you understand this link in the process, and if we understood this on more of a collective level, then we would see that any time that we're having an event in our lives that's jarring us, it's to wake us up to, like, what is actually going on in this situation? Is there something else I need to be more aware of? And for me, what happened then is, obviously I had to go through a process because I was jarred awake, if you like. I became hyper aware, and that was a whole, and I know people might struggle with that, and that links in with the mental health. So yeah, like for me, the hyper awareness is just a form of anxiety. It was like, I seen that so many things I had been ignoring and not paying attention to, that I then started to feel like it was a strategy as well for me, that I had to pay attention to everything, and that's like really stressful. And I don't want to talk too personally about on this video, because I just really want to reinforce the link and why it's a link. So once you've had this jarring experience that's kind of trying to wake you up, you're no longer asleep at the wheel, you've then got to deal with the circumstance. And so, just carrying on with that metaphor, if you realised you were actually trying to head north, if you're in England, you're trying to head north or south, and you were about to go off a cliff, then you've definitely gone east or west. You've gone completely in the wrong direction. So then you're going to have to deal with the circumstance of that once you've woken up. And once you've woken up realising you're at the east coast and actually you were trying to get to Scotland, you're then going to have to figure out how to get from where you are to where you are. And that's the mental distress, that's the mental health distress. When we wake up, we see a lot more. We're starting to, as we expand your consciousness, or however you're relating to a spiritual experience, whether it's expanding your consciousness, whether it's feeling more light in the world, trying to take more control and focus on what you want in your life, it makes you more aware. And the more aware you become, it just means that there's more consequence, there's more circumstance to clean up, and that can be stressful and overwhelming and depressing and anxiety provoking, and all of it, so for me now, I just genuinely think that people who have mental health issues, mental distress, are part of they're stuck in a trauma cycle, and they're in part of a spiritual awakening that they've not actualized. They've not been able to see that through yet, and it's a process for me. It's not condition. It's not something you're stuck with. It's not anything wrong. It's not a flaw in the person or in their brain. It's just